Hey everyone and welcome back. In this video I have isolated text messages that Nesto sent to Shirley from April through June of 2022. I'm only including his messages because I wanted to highlight his modus operandi when it comes to Shirley. And what better way to segue into what I'm sure will be more discussion tomorrow about their soon-to-be legal parting of the ways. Remember to keep in mind he was texting Sonya at the same time. Please note that in this video, I will be including my own thoughts and opinions. If you don't like the interruptions, I will provide a link below so you can hit up my playlist of all messages and you can enjoy them freely. Oh, and one more thing, I have added membership to my channel. Please consider becoming a part of the Backstage crew. You will enjoy the perks of members-only chats and behind-the-scenes live with me, your host, B.A.N.K. Also, I have added a big thank you by sending you on a complimentary 3-night vacation stay in Las Vegas, so make sure you click on the join button for more details. Let's get started.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams. I'm just sitting here embracing the ups and downs of life. I hope your days is going well. Before I begin to elaborate on things, I sat back and read all the scriptures in the Bible you sent to me. I've learned that millions of Black men's spirits have been broken as well as our community's culture has been diluted. The powerful Black forefathers of our past have all perished. Not sure as to who made this statement, but it's true that behind every successful and powerful Black man, there's a strong Black woman. A lot of simple-minded men let their ego and pride as well as their broken childhoods get in the way of listening to the intuition and wisdom placed inside their female companions by God, which in return leads them to failure. Often you would tell me that I was controlling. As these months have gone by, I've had the time to analyze my situation with a true rational mind as a man. I have always been the underdog, spit on and trampled over my whole life. To touch on the controlling aspect of my actions, they were birthed from me creating barriers to protect my family, my businesses, and my life from the soulless and malignantly influenced human beings that walk this earth seeking to expel me from helping my family be successful and me propelling them forward in life.
So let's get this out of the way. I think we can all agree that although these are the thoughts of Nesto, no way that he wrote this eloquently put together paragraph. He is definitely using an editing software such as Grammarly. A lot of these programs now have AI enhancement capabilities, and he is taking advantage of them to sound like a somewhat intelligent human being in his effort to keep Shirley on the hook. This message is from April 27th, 2023, and it is still kind of early on in his jail stint. Nesto has nothing but time to think sitting there in Cobb County. By the time of this text, he has been hit with the CP charges, and he knows he has made some missteps with Shirley. The whole "don't talk to my attorney" fiasco blew up in his face, and he needs to keep the bank of Shirley open for business. Nesto has had 10 years to study his mark and knows that Shirley's love language. Outside of the material things he can no longer give the illusion of providing for her while in the county lockup is the words of God. By addressing her as Mrs. Williams, he is reminding her of her place in his life. Like every villain, he starts to retell his origin story of the beaten, downtrodden Black man just trying to survive and protect his family. A man that fell short of God's glory and let his ego and ambition get in the way of him taking in her words of wisdom. He places the blame on the evil outside forces of society. Basically, the haters. Nesto has zero ability to take accountability for his actions, just like the seasoned criminal he is. Let's continue.
Through the lens of my children, whether they wanted successful things in life or not. They cannot say that I, as a father and a man of God, did not create possibilities for them to achieve the things they wanted. And through your eyes as well, you have witnessed me strive through any and every endeavor to ensure that my kids were with me every step of the way.
Nesto is a piece of work. An arrogant, self-serving, nasty piece of work. We now know he didn't enter Dion's life until he was 13, and that was Dion's doing. And let's not talk about the daughter that was basically begging and pleading for his love. Attention and affection in post after post on his Instagram that were not even blocked but simply ignored. There are other situations regarding his treatment of his offspring that we can get into later. But for him to think on any level he served his kids well in any meaningful way shows how very little he knows about parenting and how to nurture relationships that most of us value.
I remember when I had my business in Buckhead, I asked God to bring me an extraordinary woman to match my life. Plenty of women claim to be what God describes as a virtuous woman in his word, but lack the actual balance needed to walk in that of what he has defined. But you embody the balance instinctively.
I have to cut in here because of the obvious. Sonya. How do you explain her, Nesto? At this point in time, in April of 2023, he was juggling both Shirley and Sonya, the atheist. What a bunch of bullshit.
I remember when you said I didn't like to have fun. Fun, in my perspective, was driving you around and being your personal chauffeur like Morgan Freeman in Driving Miss Daisy, taking you from mall to mall and ensuring your safety as you enjoy your endeavors. My fun was being in servitude to you as your husband and providing you with luxurious experiences and memories as you ride in highly opulent chariots like Rolls Royces and Bentleys, and carrying out the rest of your days in G-Wagons like the late Queen of Britain. If you can look back in our memories, we never had fallen outs about things in our own relationship, for it was always other people's problems outside of ours that led us to our disagreements. In the past, I never allowed a woman to come before my kids.
At this point, he is playing with Shirley. It's sad and disturbing on all levels, in my opinion. Shirley is still somewhat on the hook, and I suspect them folks that Nesto fear are slowly breaking through to her. He is pulling out all the stops by pandering to her ego to try to keep them at bay.
But once I was humbled by God and my eyes were open, me and you took journeys looking to visit all my kids so they could be in our wedding. I was humbled even deeper to see that the season of keeping my kids on such a high pedestal was over. What haunts me the most is understanding my children's characteristics truly. I do apologize for not listening to you about leaving your daughter in Arkansas where she was. Out of that whole entire journey, you were speaking on the evil and manipulative spirit that you as a mother recognized in your own daughter.
Nesto is an asshole for this. He is continuing to make Sheridan the scapegoat for his felonious ways. It burns my blood that Shirley ever entertained this mess.
It was in your experience that God used you with the calm and glorious spirit. You have to be an example to me as to how and why I needed to pull back from my kids as well. It was a hurtful experience to see my own daughter homeless, but I couldn't condemn myself because it was based on her own decisions in life as to why she was in the predicament she was in.
What a crock of shit. I'm sorry for the swearing, but this man, Nesto, in my opinion, is a trash human being. My heart goes out to Sheridan and his daughter. For this man to have a smidgen of influence in their life is a travesty.
Instead of our daughters choosing to allow us and themselves to create new experiences in their life to help them heal from their past, they would rather demonize the help outstretched to them to stay in their pain and wallow in their destruction. In my faith and belief in Jesus Christ, I learned to be steadfast in forgiveness. He showed me in the book of John, when the woman accused of adultery was about to be stoned, how important forgiveness was, because no man could cast a stone on the fact that two were not perfect and had sin as well.
Should I give credit for Nesto for trying to pull the okey doke on Shirley? Yeah, right. See, this ninja thinks he's slick by using the book of John to clear him of his adulterous, lying tale. He knows he's cold busted regarding his victims. Never mind Coach Sonya, who at this point in time, we can't confirm with certainty that Shirley is even aware of her.
They in turn had to forgive, and for that I must forgive also. I often tell you that no matter how much people steal from me, talk about me, or tarnish my character, that I must stay focused on the bigger picture and keep moving forward. God has truly blessed you with two men in your life from different sides of the same spectrum. A man who fought for the law and fell, and a man placed under the law but was and is to be exalted above it. I'm not sure what it is that keeps you hungry for our love, but my idea is that you can see the bigger picture for what God has in store for us. An example is back then when you were angry about how Steve didn't give you credibility for you influence in the creation of that book. I told you to let that go because God has bigger plans for us. Stay tuned. I have more coming tomorrow morning. Good night.
Nesto speaks with a forked tongue. He is applying all the pressure. He is slickly praising her quote-unquote strength, and in the next breath reminding her of her abusive ex. I truly hope later on she showed Debbie, Tasha, or Monica this crap, and they all had a good kiki about his criminal ass. And let's not talk about how he slid in that whole Shirley being Steve's ghostwriter. In one of the latest phone calls from prison dropped of him and Sonya, he talks about this. Even from jail, he is not above digging his claws in her. Oh, by the way, Shirley did not respond to this text.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Williams. In regard to last night, I knew that God instilled so much anointing into you and that your calling was so much greater to the point that even Steve still had to hit you up for daily quotes. Even he cannot deny your position in God. So when I asked God to bring me an extraordinary and virtuous woman, he placed you in my life, a woman with grace, balance, and elegance. That I have never had and at first didn't understand. I would never regret our years of marriage. In fact, I would do it all over again. I've never bowed down to no human being. But it is the God in you and the fact that God himself speaks through you that makes me submit to his presence like a young child. It's a blessing as well that the same three men who stayed with us in our coastal luxury homes in their time of hardship are now the same three men who are there for us in our own hardship. I've seen so many that you have helped and watched them all fall by the wayside. It's the unknown people that show up in your life that give the encouragement that you need in your life.
Who's the three men? If you know, let me know in the comments.
Just like Tasha, it took you 10 years to bring her back into your life to give you and I confirmation. She gave you confirmation on how toxic her boyfriend was, and she gave me confirmation that I was right on my judgment of his character as a man. If I hadn't have stood my ground, I would have never seen that truth come out. God never give us nothing that we can't handle. Anything he allow us to go through is for the sole purpose of growth and given to us because we are strong enough to withstand the pressure. When we first moved to LA, I would always stress that he didn't have to move out the house. For one, I don't intentionally tarnish another man's character or lifestyle, and I was going off the strength of your judgment of his situation. But later in our marriage, I learned to study your character ability, that you despise drama or conflict. Once people learn your character, they will try to use it against you. That's where my ability kicked in that you needed. The street insight. These past 6 months, I was angry at God, but I realized when I was in Dallas last year, an older woman walked up on me out of nowhere at an RV convention. She told me I'd be facing some challenges before I turned 60. I didn't understand what she meant, but now I can see it after 10 months of incarceration. I had to be stripped down to then be rebuilt mentally. God had to restore my mind and my heart as well. He has showed up for me so many times. It's unexplainable and almost unreal. You have always supported me from day one through the good and the bad of all my endeavors, whether it worked or didn't work. To be a part of the billionaire club, you have to have several businesses fail to then have found that one. I've already mastered my marriage.
And in the middle of this second attempt to smooze a Shirley, this man is texting the side chick. He is also reinforcing his obvious belief that Shirley does not have two brain cells to rub together. From Sheridan to her brother, she needed Nesto to save her from their nefarious intentions. The inside of a brain of a manipulative narcissist is unreal.
I remember when Charlie Wilson came to my business next to the Shepherd Center and he was in my chair. While I was cutting his hair, he was so humble, giving me a piece of his story and the things that he overcame. Now, he's 70 years old, still dancing like a king. The same thing Denzel was telling me about his wife was the same thing Charlie was telling me 10 years prior. That's the power that a woman in your life holds. That is the foundation of power. One thing they told me is if a woman builds you up and refuses to try and tear you down, then you need to stick with her. That's one thing I have to applaud you for. And that's the fact that you have never tried to strip me of my manhood. Instead, whatever you couldn't get through to me, you gave it to God.
In my opinion, Nesto, it wasn't so much she gave it to God, she gave up. You are exhausting, bruh. After almost 10 years of dealing with you, she probably only had peace when you were wandering around the Nestiverse and cosplaying a businessman. I know I have been hard on Shirley, but I truly do have sympathy for her.
Good evening to my grace and elegant. I want to share my deepest thoughts with you. Yesterday, I picked the USA Today newspaper that one of the inmates here gets sent in weekly. It was lying on the floor. I picked it up and started to turn the page when an article all of a sudden jumped out to me and drove my spirit up. At first, it made me so angry, life section. The title of the article reads, 50 Cent goes back to the beginning for Final Lap Tour. I remember when every day you would plant in my head how your wish was to live on the resident side of the Mandarin Hotel. So when we scheduled a date with the realtor to go visit the property, and the realtor notified us that just one of the condominiums that were priced for $1 to $2 million, I realized then that the condos were out of my tax bracket. So I had to regroup. And in that, I came up with the idea to set up reservations at the hotel side of the Mandarin for your birthday. I wanted to just fill the room with your grace and elegance. I'm not sure if you remember the incident that took place in the elevator with 50 Cent when he tried to play me like a nobody after I decided to introduce myself to him. We got off the elevator and stepped into the lobby. He walked up to the lobby receptionist and asked her who had the best barbershop in Buckhead. She looked it up on Google and said my name.
And who are you, Nesto? And why would 50 Cent need to know who you are? The nerve of this man, who to 50 was, and is a nobody. Real celebrities are a dime a dozen in Atlanta. And for this ninja to think he had that kind of clout is mind-boggling.
He remembered the small encounter in the elevator and apologized for mistaking me for a groupie. He showed up at the shop with his entourage and I sent him to Dion and he was given the fullest extent of my service. He tipped everybody $100 apiece. The reason I got angry at myself was because I know that I gravitate the right people to myself. But even in that, I knew that this special time wasn't about me, but about ensuring that you got to enjoy your birthday. So in that, I would never choose to be selfish. The blessing made its way back to me while I was in LA when I took your niece Star to the comedy club. I was sitting on stage with Cheryl Underwood when she expressed to me that I had one of the best blessings in my life, and that was you. She stood on the fact that it was in my best interest to protect you with my life. People were going to be out to persecute us spiritually, verbally, and physically. But if we stood firm in our faith in God, that He could not only protect us, but strengthen our relationship, that we could persevere through all things set forth. She exclaimed that the likelihood of there being a relationship like ours between a man and a woman was slim to none. That was based on the fact that there is not a lot of men like myself. And to take it even a step further, there are not a lot of real men, period, for women to choose from.
Sitting in the county lockup, reminiscing over all of his fairy tale celebrity meetups must be a special talent. You see how he weaves in out of quote-unquote giving Shirley her flowers while stealing them at the same time. He is not only an energy vampire, but a fairy dusty, always propping himself up by stealing other people's shine. And why on earth would Cheryl Underwood have so much insight as in Shirley's relationship? I guess he must have whipped out his IG wedding photos out on her. If Cheryl said anything, she was giving Nesto the old, bless his heart. Shirley was basically like a contestant on The Price is Right. She had 3 prizes to pick from and ended up with the booby prize. Real man, my left pinky toe.
Balance is everything to a man with real purpose. At times, I can be very left-brained in my frame of mind of thinking, a little harsh in my judgment of my own decisions even. But God knows this, and for that, He sent me you, a voice of reason and a right-brained thinker to add color and definition to my canvas. With this, I can make the most accurate decisions.
Are you serious, Nesto? Shout out to AI.
He sent you to balance me, to be my counsel when I need it for my own greater good. And sometimes when I need reassurance on exactly what it is you're supposed to be in my life, He sends even the most random people to remind me that you were made exactly for me. Your wholesomeness is so exponential that you told me to never allow anything or anyone to get in the way of completing my mission, to abstain from them or cast my gaze, even from you as well if you fell in that lineup. You would even put yourself in that line of fire. You constantly remind me of my strength in God, that even in every tough situation I've been in, that I would never curse against Him or lose my faith. He is all I ever had to lean on. I'm in conflict with myself about getting my story behind the camera and whether I want to make a movie or shoot a series.
Again, always working on the next scheme, shaking my head. Go big or go home, or in your case, jail. Right, Nesto?
As well as who I feel is fit to truly implement me in the screenplay. I'm leaning towards a series for reasons of solely that my consumers have to condition themselves to watch and wait for new episodes of my story as it gets deeper and deeper.
Oh, it gets deeper, sir.
With this, if the production is done properly, then they would develop a hunger to want to connect with my story and the character. It's the same reason why people connect with the show Power and the main character, Ghost. Speaking of Ghost, at one point in time, I fell for Denzel Washington to play my character, but lately I've been leaning towards Omar Hardwick Ghost to play me instead. I want to express that what truly sparked this whole conflict within was this TV news report about how this woman had a child and threw the child away in the dumpster. The child was later found by a family and rescued. The lady was caught 4 years later through DNA testing. Seeing that brought me back to earlier years and how I had seen so many messed up things throughout my life, things that made me second guess God's existence, even in my own situations. But just like Job by the Bible, in his persecution, he was set free and God got His glory. It took time, but God didn't let nothing go unjust. And just like that child in the dumpster, it took time, but that baby girl was rescued and her mother was crucified. And even myself, it took time, but God rescued me from my afflictions and God got His glory by allowing me to become the man I am today. I say this to say that the TV news report made me realize that a movie is too short for people to see how good God is in my life. They need to see His works broken down so they can capture a full perspective.
I know a lot of people would call this narc behavior, and you will get no argument from me. This man lacks basic awareness and insight to the situation in front of him. A small part of me would say he is saying and thinking all of this as a form of self-preservation to keep those demons in his head chasing his tail all over that jail. But time and time again, his words and actions scream selfish. Even a baby thrown away in a dumpster is no match for what he is going through in his small mind.
They need episode and seasons to show time and intricate detail. I've already allowed God to use me as a vessel, an example, and a voice of reason myself. It's so real that the last time my lawyer came to see me, when I thought the lawyer was coming for me, I realized that God needed me to use the wisdom I had obtained through my trials and tribulations and bestow it upon this person. And in that, I could free their mind so they could help their own child with depression. It kind of demonically influenced depression I shared at one point of my life. For instance, when Ebony texted your phone on Mother's Day, she was soft checking you in the event that she would open a door that would expose my hand. She is aware of the pattern of how God blesses me as well as how it comes. It was always at my lowest. For 4 years, I was depressed, dealing with all the things she put me through. Through my depression, these evil spirits manifested themselves and took a hold of me that was so strong that I lost sight of myself and wanted to take my own life. But God had his hand over me. His purpose was greater. As I was going to send myself off by my own demise, I sat in my car. It was storming heavily outside, my gun in my lap, trying to find the reasons to still exist. A memory flashed across my brain. It's 2010 all over again, and I'm in my office staring at a picture of Ebony on my computer. My son walks in behind me and catches me in my gaze. He could see the deterioration of his father unfold in front of his eyes. One day, he broke down in tears and asked me what was truly wrong with me. I busted back out in tears myself. This pain I couldn't hide no longer. I didn't realize at the time that Ebony didn't like how hard I went for my kids. I flashed back into reality. I'm about to send out a mass farewell text. All of a sudden, Andre calls me out of the blue.
There is no low that Nesto is not willing to go. He pulls in Ebony, Dion, and Dre to blame and or co-sign his bullshit. Ebony as the fall guy to his lack, and Dion and Dre as his crutch. And of course, this all to keep Shirley off balance, but ultimately on the hook by pretending to have these moments of reflection.
Not even knowing my intentions at the time, he was calling to vent to me about a past friend of ours who was a drug kingpin in the early 2000s. Our friend had got indicted by the feds back then and came to the conclusion that he wasn't going to do any time. In pursuit of being chased by the feds, he finally got pulled over, decided to run into the expressway with oncoming traffic and got ran over and died. He took his own life. He had left his kids and family behind selfishly because he couldn't man up. Andre didn't know it yet, but God used him to breathe life back into my spirit. At that moment, I realized how selfish I too would have been had I followed suit. I have forgiven Ebony unselfishly as Jesus forgave his persecutors for not knowing that they were being used by evil spirits to destroy the good-hearted. And in my forgiveness, I was elevated to a level of grace and blessings beyond measures unexplainable. I forgave her and myself and was set free. Ebony began to recognize this pattern in my life. And not only did it upset the spirit in her, it made her wish she could be as strong as you. Remember when I showed you that picture of Ebony that my friend Honey sent me? At that moment in time, Honey apologized to me because she too could see the evil spirit that resided in Ebony. I was set free and elevated out of my depression. And with that experience, God used me to help set someone else free. When you're at your deliverances, when the devil attacks you the hardest, but God will keep his hands over you and glorify himself by your rescue. This is why he sent you to me. It is you I asked for, someone who can sustain extraordinary power.
I wonder how many pictures of Sonya he had to trade in order to get this crock of bull written. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall as Shirley read this mess. It has been well documented that Ebony had some, shall I say, issues, and dealing with Nesto, in my opinion, wasn't helping to improve her situation. It seems to me her circumstances may have turned for the best. I'll bet my last dollar Ebony realizes she dodged a bullet with Nesto.
On a positive note, I must send all my praises vertical to the Most High, being that he has created a patience deep within me and made me sure of his plans with me. Because my trust in him is so strong, I'm able to conquer all things. Everything I've experienced, good or bad, is so I could be a testimony of his completeness. But need I remind you that patience and love is the key. The love for patience equals trust. So with that being said, I'll be here sitting still and eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches while his spirit is at work.
As you should, Nesto. This man wants brownie points for everything.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my elegant lady. Just wanted to give you something that would make you smile even as hard times we are facing. Thought hard about this next line. Pretty sure it's true. If you take a step towards your freedom, God will take steps towards you. With that being said, I would like for you to go back in time with me. I'm in total understanding of the position you're in mentally. There's been plenty of times in my life where I've had to shut down and, in a sense, isolate myself from people to get a clear understanding on how I was going to delegate my next moves. It is necessary, being that no one can interrupt your thoughts, and as well as you can spend that alone time to communicate with God, He will definitely point you in the right direction in which He could ask you to do things that you might not want to do, but will be totally in your best interest. Things like cut people off who mean you no good and take up space in your life, family members and loose-lip individuals. He could also ask you to abstain from materialistic things that can literally become liabilities in your life. I'm saying this to say that solitude with God is always a great tool for one's frame of mind, so that you can take a deep look and reflect and work to cleanse yourself of negative things that the devil may try and use to demonize you. Ideally, your objective is to strengthen your faith in God. That is done by seeking a strong relationship with Him, so that you can deepen your connection with Him. Praying and reading His word are the tools used to help you, so that in time, God can reveal Himself to you in such a way that is so real that you cannot deny His existence. Once this experience happens, your faith and belief is strengthened to a point that when you begin to speak things that are positive over your life, they then begin to manifest. As I am writing this, they in this very moment had called me out for an attorney visit unexpectedly. In my visit, I was told to keep my faith essentially. Things like this that happen unexpectedly gives me confirmation in my belief that God is intact, showing up for me. So whatever major decision you have to make at this moment, treat like an ultimatum. Trust whatever decision you make 1000%. And know that if your heart is righteous and pure, that God is behind it. And don't make an irrational decision because of your emotions. Ask God to guard your heart. Even if you have to sacrifice me for the betterment of yourself, God will always do more for you than I could ever possibly think I could. Our anniversary is the 16th of this month in 2 days. You told me 9 years ago that if you ever died and if I chose to marry another woman, that I should never lower my standards to something under how beautiful and amazing you are. So the same goes for you. Even after me, God forbid, never settle for nothing lower than me. Stay in grace and greatness. That is what our Lord will want you to have. May God be with you, my lady in the clouds. I love you forever. From your magic man, Big Nesto.
I don't have any money.
And on that note, I will end my critique and commentary on the set of text messages sent to Shirley the B.A.N.K is closed strawberry on the eve of what a lot of us hope is her divorce from this character. To sum it up, Nesto's full of shit. If you like this recap and wish for me to isolate more of these text messages along with my commentary for further insight and entertainment, let me know in the comments below. And please don't hesitate to jump in with your own opinions. I love reading your comments. Until the next upload, peace.